This video is brought to you by Surfshark. So, last week might have been the craziest week I've seen in European basketball in a while. Zeljko Obradovic, the coach of Partizan Belgrade and essentially one of the greatest, if not the greatest to ever do it, has resigned. What followed was a crazy sequence of events that led to over 10,000 people tracking his flight online, over 2,000 people greeting him at the airport on a weekday, and finally fans rioting next to their team's arena. There's a lot to unpack here, so let's walk through what actually happened and why this whole thing feels so surreal. First of all, some quick context for those who maybe weren't following Partizan. This wasn't just some sudden crisis. This has been building up for weeks and weeks. In the EuroLeague, they started with 3 wins and 2 losses, but what followed was a really bad stretch. Partizan lost 5 of their next 6 games, most notably losing to the bottom of the barrel team as well. And so they dropped to a 4-7 record, tied near the bottom of the standings. On paper that already looked rough, but it was also the way they were losing that really stood out. After that asshole game, Obradovic said something that you really rarely hear him say so directly in public. He basically called out his own players for not being mentally present. He said they started the game in an unacceptable way, that it was shameful how they looked, and he mentioned that before the game the players were actually on their phones instead of being locked in. To me, that was the first moment where I could really tell that the connection between the coach and the team is really damaged. Then we saw another defeat against Fener, and then came the game in Athens, where Partizan was scheduled to play Panathinaikos, and let's just say it ended in a brutal way. In Zeljko's return to Oaxaca, the game was close for 2.5 quarters, and then we see a total collapse from Partizan as they get hit with a 25-0 run. That's tied for the biggest scoring run in EuroLeague history. In a game where it felt like a must-win to save Partizan's season, this was a huge mental blow.
Stop! Hey, please stop! Hey, say something! Hey, say something! Okay? Watch over here!
I mean, if you watch that game, you know the feeling. Everything from how the players looked on the court to their body language looked horrible. And when you looked at Zeljko on the sidelines, he didn't look like himself. He looked like someone who just hit a wall. After that game, the numbers were just ugly. 7 losses in the last 8 EuroLeague games, sitting 18th in the standings with a 4-9 record. But the real story wasn't just the record. It was that for the first time in his career, Zeljko Obradovic felt that he just couldn't fix it. The next morning, Zeljko calls the club president Ostoja Mijailovic, and this is where the main story really begins. According to Mijailovic's own version later, Obradovic tells him straight up, "I've made my decision, I am resigning, I've informed the coaching staff, and now I'm informing you. I did this deliberately so you have time during the break to find a new coach." And then Zeljko explains why. He says that the players don't respect him, that his health is suffering, that he's emotionally hurt, that he's lost, and that he cannot accept these results anymore. For Zeljko Obradovic to say "I am lost" about a basketball team is something that I'm pretty sure all of us in Europe didn't expect to ever hear. And from there, things started moving really fast. The media picked it up and it got reported as an irrevocable resignation. Partizan's season, which already looked bad, suddenly became a full-blown crisis. You have the most decorated coach in EuroLeague history basically walking away in the middle of the season just because he feels like he can't reach this roster anymore. Now, before we look at the response from the management and the fans, I want to tell you about Surfshark, who will help you stay safe online and browse freely. First of all, the simplicity. You install the Surfshark app, log in, click one button, and instantly you get an encrypted connection and a masked IP. One specific thing I use it all the time for is getting better online deals. Prices for flights, hotels, even subscriptions change depending on your location. With Surfshark, you can switch countries with one click, compare, and get the best deal, saving you money. So if, say, you travel to EuroLeague games, the difference when you're booking hotels and flights can be huge. And then when you're in the airport traveling or in the hotel and you connect to the Wi-Fi, it also keeps your banking and personal data protected so you can make transfers or check your account safely from anywhere. Plus, Surfshark has over 4,500 servers in 100 countries, so the connection stays fast and stable no matter where you are. So try it yourself. Go to surfshark.com/basketnews or use code BASKETNEWS at checkout. You'll get 4 months extra of Surfshark VPN, and there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. Now let's get back to Zeljko. This is where the story actually becomes unique and kinda crazy. Instead of treating this as a normal resignation, the club kinda went, no, you're not resigning, we're not accepting this. So this executive and management board met in an emergency session, and originally it was supposed to be about finding a new coach. Instead, they walk out of this meeting unanimously rejecting his resignation. Mihajlovic proposed that they give him full-on, unconditional support and then ask him to reconsider. Also adding they're not gonna look for a replacement until Zeljko actually responds. Basically, they were all in on one thing, somehow convincing Zeljko to stay. At the same time though, the fan base reacts in a way that you don't see anywhere else in the world. News breaks that he's resigned and the Partizan fans start organizing immediately. Listen to this, more than 10,000 people started tracking his flight online, which is just insane. In fact, that was the most tracked flight in the world at the time. Welcome to things that only Serbians can do. Anyways, by the time his flight lands from Athens at the Nikola Tesla airport, there are around 2,000 people waiting for him. There's flares, banners, chants of Zeljko's stay, contract for Zeljko, and so on. Those were some incredible scenes, almost like a championship welcome, and it just shows you how much the fans actually appreciate Zeljko Obradovic. Meanwhile, inside the club, the pressure on him to stay is only growing. Ostoja later said that he even told Zeljko, "Give us the names of players who disrespected you and we'll terminate their contracts immediately." He basically offered to fire certain players just to keep the coach. And it went even further than that because they said, "We can even change the goals for the season. If you want, we can change the expectations to, I don't know, we can even finish last as long as you stay, Zeljko." That is how desperate the club were to actually keep the coach. Some players also got involved. You have guys like Aleksej Pokuševski and captain Vanja Marinkovic reportedly telling him they wanted to see him at practice on Saturday, the first training session after that Panathinaikos loss. Almost everyone around the team is trying to pull him back into the team. I'm talking about fans, some players, management, even the media. The whole basketball community wanted Zeljko to stay in Partizan. And all this time, the big question was, is he going to change his mind? The answer comes on Saturday, and it's not the one Partizan fans wanted. Despite all the support, despite the airport scenes, despite the board rejecting his resignation, Partizan finally releases an official statement. Zeljko Obradovic will not continue as head coach. The meeting between him and the front office lasted for more than 2 hours. The club said they offered him full backing, but he said, "I just don't see myself working with this current roster anymore and I'm sticking to my initial decision." And that's where the emotional part of the story takes over. Right after the official announcement drops, fans who had gathered outside Belgrade Arena for a scheduled practice basically lose it. They were there to support Zeljko, maybe expecting some kind of clarity or a message. Instead, they get confirmation that he's leaving. Some of them break through the security barriers, clash with the police, and they even managed to smash some windows in the arena. The training session is cancelled, police start bringing reinforcements, and the fans start demanding that the captain of the team, Vanja Marinkovic, and the management comes out to talk with them. So within a span of 48 hours, we went from the most heartwarming, emotional airport welcome you'll ever see to rioting in front of the arena. Same fan base, just a completely different emotional phase with no hope left. A day later, Mihajlovic goes on TV and gives this long, detailed interview that kind of closes the loop on what happened behind the scenes, and this is where most of the information in this video is coming from. So to conclude this whole story, this was far from a regular coaching change in Europe. It was a 64-year-old legend who already brought the club back to the EuroLeague, won 2 ABA League titles with them, pushed Real Madrid to 5 games in the playoffs, suddenly finding no hope with the team. And for me, that's what makes the story so wild. It's not the results themselves, because Partizan had some bad seasons before. It's the combination of everything, including the historic collapse on the floor, the public frustrations about the players, and honest statements that the coach doesn't feel like he's getting his respect and is just lost. And now Partizan are in a position where they have the toughest job in EuroLeague history. Whoever comes in next is replacing Zeljko Obradovic at a club that just spent 4 years emotionally attached to him, with a fan base that has already shown they're ready to shut down an airport and storm an arena for their coach. That's the standard you're walking into. Now guys, if you're a Partizan fan, let me know, how did you experience this whole roller coaster? Were you at the airport, were you outside the arena, or were you just watching it unfold online? And also generally, how do you feel about this whole story and Zeljko leaving? Drop those thoughts and stories in the comments below. Also like this video, and more importantly, subscribe, because we're so close to 200,000 subs. I really want to get there. This would be a great accomplishment for the channel, so help us out by doing that, and also put on the notification bell so you always don't miss out on our latest videos. We'll see you in the next one.